Welcome to our Light Art Seminar by Lucy Axford and Yemi Solarin. Today I'm going to be talking about moving picture artists. The first one I'm going to be referring to, I was slightly confused about why he was included in the moving picture section because I would consider his primary medium to be more like creating environmental pieces in the real world. His work is often in public places, and I think that this really adds beauty into everyday life. His smaller scale works are often in museums, and I think that the key theme of nature really ties together the majority of his work. His work includes something called fire vortex, which is quite self-explanatory. It's fire in a wind vortex. I feel like I'm not really a huge fan of this piece because I prefer it when light's kind of maybe used in a slightly more artistic way. To me, it feels a bit more like a science experiment than it does a piece of art. Perhaps a piece I prefer is his prism tunnel. I like the way the light is manipulated in this piece. It kind of looks like it's almost kind of leading the way out to the tunnel. And I really just like rainbow effects in general. Overall, I am a fan of his work. I think that he has such a wide variety of different work. He's worked in all different mediums, but his work is very much got an individual identity. Bill is a video artist from New York, and his work really goes into like universal experiences like life and death. His work often has a very spiritual element to it, which is inspired by Buddhism and Christianity. It includes religious imagery like crucifixion scenes, and some of his work that I wanted to explore was a piece called Ascension, which basically it almost looks like the person is drowning, but then he rises to the surface. I really like this piece. I really like the framing. I really like the colors. I think it looks really dramatic. I think it really helps get the point across. And then probably his most famous work is called Martyrs, which was displayed in the St. Paul's Cathedral. This shows that we're getting overwhelmed by different elements. And there was a documentary that was made about this called The Road to St. Paul's. I think this really shows the scope of this piece and how interesting the production process for it was. I think I'm mostly kind of interested in the narrative and symbolism of his work. He makes work that isn't just appealing to the eye, but also makes you think. I'm going to explore Christian Marlocky, who is a joint Swiss artist and composer. He kind of explores the fusion between fine art and audio cultures. Some of his work I was looking into was the video quartet, which basically just shows different clips of different musicians playing instruments in movies. This is edited together in a way where it creates a unique melody. And I like the kind of variety of footage that he uses and the way the footage is framed. And I think it was good the way that he made the sound match the visuals. Probably his most famous piece, and definitely the one I'm the most interested in, is a piece called The Clock. And basically, this shows like a compilation of moments in cinema where a character interacts with time. And basically, what's so interesting about this is it's created as essentially like a 24-hour video, like timepiece, which is synced to the local clock. And this video can only be shown at one museum at a time. I think that this is so interesting because someone who goes to the museum in the morning and someone who goes in the afternoon will get very different experiences with this video. I think that his work is very unique because he combines his kind of love of art and musical elements. Another motion artist that I thought I would talk about is Susan Hiller. She was an American-born artist who lived in London, and she often uses kind of cultural aspects in her work. Two of her pieces that I wanted to look into were a piece called Psy Girls. This features kind of different clips of young women in cinema, and they all have telekinetic powers. This shows 5 different projections, which have all been tinted into different colors. I think the projection of this looks absolutely stunning. Like, it looks really dramatic. The piece has like kind of almost weird kind of drumming and rhythmic sound, which I think really creates this kind of dramaticism to this piece. The second piece is called An Entertainment, which is kind of showing like kind of old vintage recordings from like old Punch and Judy shows. This video kind of appears grainy, and the video also shows kind of a darker side to these traditional shows, them in a more creepy way than a fun way. I really like her work. I think it's always done in striking colors and is very eye-catching. I think these artists have such a diverse range of styles and take inspiration from such different places that it can be quite hard to compare them. I feel like Ned's work is more based around physical spaces, and the video aspect kind of takes a secondary purpose. But I think this kind of goes in contrast to kind of Bill's very narrative videos, which are very kind of symbolic and piecing. I think the artists that create work reflect the most on kind of real world issues and spiritual questions are Bill and Helen, while maybe Christian takes more like into like pop culture and music. I think that looking at all these different artists' work have really inspired me to like push the boundaries of my own work and explore a variety of different editing styles and maybe filming things more in camera.
Light art artist, starting with James Turrell. James Turrell has innovated photographic techniques that allow light have physical presence, using holographic to make the light itself the subject rather than the medium. Turrell creates colored light installations that appear to possess mass and take up spaces like planes, cubes, pyramids, and tunnels. One of Turrell's series of projects was called Sky Space. This was constructed around the world in an enclosed spaces open to the sky through an aperture in the roof that enabled viewers to observe changes in light from minute to minute and season to season. This project was described as a religious experience. Here is one of the Sky Space series located at Reese University, and here is another one located at the University of Washington. Moving on to Elias and Olafur. At one of his practice in 2009, he said it is not about decorating the wall, but about taking responsibility. Eliasson uses natural elements like light, water, and the fog, prompting reflection on the spaces surrounding. He poured bright light into the cities. Eliasson installed a giant artificial sun inside the Tate Modern called the Weather Project in 2003. Known for his elegant simplicity, his installations have rooted in a belief that art can create a space sensitive to both individual and collective. Here is the project called the Weather Project with the sun effect. Moving on to just Van. He works with light and daylight in architecture and sculptures. Light and solar phenomena are the art of his work. Natural variations of daylight create dynamic and living images. The Light Lady is is suited at the roundabout of the Northern Relief Road to Bracken. This is one of his projects. The silhouette changes as you move around it. The best time to see this sculpture is at night when it is lit by lamps of different colors. It gives a very striking festive appearance. You certainly cannot ignore this piece when you see it. Here is the project called The Light Lady by Just Van. Moving on to Leo Villarreal. This is one light artist I admire a lot, and I decided to pick one of his project as part of this research. He is an artist whose work combines LED light, often in enormous quantities, with encoded computer programming to create illuminated display. Well, most of the time he programmed this light effect himself, and he is a trained sculptor as well. His kinetic works are composed of light of white or multicolored incandescent strobe, neon, or LED light, whose pulsing, flickering, and fading is controlled by computer code that he writes himself, like I said earlier. Here is one of his work, a 100 feet pedestrian bridge towering over Howard, towering over Howard Street. This connects the two sides of Moscow Center with seemingly infinite array of light. Moving to the next slide. Here is the bridge we're talking about, done by Leo Villarreal. Comparing these artists, what we've come to realize is that these artists all have the same goal. This that which is the same goal, which is to create a rich environment in which emergent behavior can occur without a preconceived outcome. They are active participants in the process through their careful selection of compelling sequences in their own different diverse styles. Exploring their works with design practice, one central feature of aesthetics experience is their ability to arouse emotions in perceivers. It feels natural to experience joy, pleasure, shivers down the spine, how in sight of grandiose artworks, um, or sometimes even negative emotions of fear, anger, or disgust in front of visually challenging, challenging stimuli. Comparing all these artists, we have come to agree that their work of art can readily evoke emotions. It is, although, an open question regarding how they connect to people's emotions. But then looking at design to our understanding is an act of communication, which means having a deep understanding of the person which with whom the designer is communicating to, either through emotions or direct communication, which brings a connection between these artists and design. Their works may not be to advertise directly, but connect to people emotionally. Here are references to our project, and thank you.